Listen carefully, young students, because this history lesson will teach you something important about the galaxy we live in. It was the Zorkan Empire who first met humans, and being Zorkans, they attacked immediately. This was a big mistake. Our galaxy has many worlds, but only a few smart species that can travel between stars. We flying people, the Avirians, are the most advanced of these species. What nobody knew was that humans had quietly built a small territory for themselves in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. Nothing huge, just a few dozen colonies near their home star. But here's the important part. They had no idea that Zorkans existed, or any other smart alien species. You would think that when an aggressive species like the Zorkans met humans, a simple race with no experience fighting aliens, the humans would lose badly. This did not happen. Let me explain why. A Zorkan military scout team found a small human settlement on a planet they wanted to use for mining. The settlement was new, maybe 5 to 10 years old, built after their first survey of the planet. The Zorkans are very strict about following orders. When they found buildings where there should be none, they immediately started burning them down. They might not have realized these buildings were made by intelligent beings. You see, Zorkan share thoughts through special smells, so they're not good at understanding that other species think differently. So, they burned the human town. Well, they tried to. Luckily for us historians, Zorkan soldiers wear helmet cameras that record everything back to their ship. Combined with human witnesses, we know exactly what happened. The team leader walked up to the first building, ignoring the strange creatures, humans, running away. He started burning it with his arm-mounted flame weapon. The next building was bigger, 2 floors instead of 1. Zorkans are large, 5 meters long but only 1 meter wide, and they usually stand 2 meters high. When they rear up on their back legs, using their 6 limbs for different tasks, they get even taller. The team leader shot fire into the ground floor, then reared up and shot fire through the second floor window. He also fired his laser weapon for good measure. So this destroyer, along with 19 other team members, was tearing through the human settlement. They barely noticed the actual humans, but then the leader spotted a vehicle leaving town and disabled it with a laser shot. Going to finish it off with his flame weapon, he found 4 humans, a male, female, and 2 children, hiding in the wreckage. His recordings show he definitely paused here. Maybe being a leader made him slightly smarter than most Zorkans, but only for a moment. Then he raised his flame weapon to continue the destruction. That's when he realized he no longer had a flame weapon, or the arm it was attached to. He let out a terrible scream as he realized he was hurt, and backed away from the wrecked vehicle. Standing between him and the human family, next to his severed arm, was another human. This human wore full body armor, and had somehow crept underneath him and removed his limb before he even noticed. The human held a large kinetic pistol and a sword, an actual sword. The Zorkan commander stared in shock. He was going into medical shock, but still had a few minutes before he would collapse. Then he remembered his laser weapon on his other arm. He pointed it at the human and fired. The human simply stepped aside. The human didn't dodge the laser blast. He was so fast that in the time it took the commander to aim and fire, the human could see where the blast would hit and just move away. That's how quick human reactions are. The commander kept firing, but it didn't help. The last thing his helmet camera recorded was a blur of movement passing beneath him before, well, he was the first casualty in the human-Zorkan war. So, who was this mysterious human with the sword, and why was he there? Here's the amazing part. He was there for exactly the same reason as the Zorkan team. He was an armed scout who, with 4 others, had come to prepare the planet for invasion. Humans are not united as one government. The group that sent the scouts was at war with the group that built the colony, and they planned to take the planet from them. This was normal. Different human groups were almost always fighting each other. But here's the important part. While the Zorkans were heavily armed for Zorkans, and only really prepared for dangerous animals, the human scouts only had what humans considered light weapons. And they were still equipped enough to defeat the Zorkans. The scouts were meant for stealth missions, which explains the sword. It had a special molecular edge that could cut through almost anything silently. It worked perfectly. The scout and his 4 partners cut through most of the Zorkans before they realized anything was wrong. Their active camouflage armor helped too. That's how the scout got so close to the commander. The Zorkan team was completely outmatched. Only 3 out of 20 made it back to their ship. They could have bombarded the colony from space, but they were in shock and could barely run their ship with so few crew. They fled back to their home territory as fast as possible. Are you confused yet? I was when I first studied this. Fighting within the same species isn't completely unknown. Mating rituals often involve some physical conflict, but it usually takes the form of aggressive displays with no real injuries. The fact that humans regularly kill each other is shocking, but organized mass violence, no other species has anything like human wars. Most conflicts within species that aren't solved through talking and negotiation is usually preferred because it's less costly, are resolved with displays of power. Why risk actual injury when you can figure out in advance who is stronger? Maybe it's because humans are carnivorous hunters. This is very unusual. Complex societies usually develop from herd species or flocks, like us, which generally means they were near the bottom of the food chain when they evolved, and were probably plant eaters. This is true for most intelligent species in the galaxy. We Avirians mainly eat rich fruits from high trees where our flocks were hunted by sky predators in our early days. The Zorkans built hives and were hunted by ground snakes when they left to gather fungus. Each species has an ancient predator that haunts our racial memory. Don't think I don't know you sometimes make fake wings to scare people with predator shadows. It's not funny, but although there are things on Earth that will eat humans, I shuddered to think what could threaten an adult human. That's not what really frightens them. Watch their entertainment sometime. You'll see occasional aliens or monsters, but most violence shown is inflicted by other humans. For humans, the main threat to their survival, apart from diseases, has always been other humans. This is what makes them so dangerous. Ignore that they're carnivores. Put aside that they evolved both to hunt other animals and survive predation by things even more vicious. They are the only intelligent species in the known galaxy that evolved to cope with predation by other intelligent beings. When you or I feel threatened, our instinct is to find a leaf to hide under. That's all, an instinct left over from our days as prey. It's just a relic in our brain, and it's our only fear reaction since sky hunters were our only major predators, and hiding was the only effective strategy. We won't naturally try to run or fight. If we encounter a situation that calls for this, it's hard to force ourselves. Our intellect, our brain says hide. Our brain. Likewise, Zorkans will rear up when threatened to look bigger, but they won't actually risk combat if they can run away, because against their world's predators, this usually meant serious injury. Humans, however, take instinct to a whole new level. Their response when threatened has been constantly improved over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, because their main threat was usually other humans. The threats evolved with them. On top of physical evolution, their cultural evolution was similarly affected. A significant part of almost all human cultures has been dedicated to making humans better at killing other humans. Warriors, in many cultures, this is actually a separate class, whose entire lives are dedicated to becoming better at killing enemy humans. Humanity evolved while engaging in a constant arms race. Imagine if when we first developed sky hunter nets, the hunters had found ways to cut through them, then matched every solution we came up with. Not a pleasant thought, but this is normal for humanity. This produced a species that is incredibly fast, incredibly tough, not as big as some, but weight for weight extremely strong. Even though they're smaller than Zorkans, few are bigger. If that first encounter had happened without weapons, the scouts probably could have simply torn off the Zorkans' limbs. Most importantly, they have the mental architecture to go with their biological weapons. Unlike every other species in the galaxy, evolving to fight other intelligent beings meant they haven't just had to outfight their opponents, they've had to outthink them too. Some of the most famous figures in human culture are those who thought other humans, not in personal combat, but with organizational skills and strategies. Humans value intelligence in conflict at least as much as physical violence, and their reactions to threats are extremely complex and adaptable. I imagine you're quite frightened now. You should be. I've described humans as unstoppable killing machines, which is mostly true, but remember they are intelligent and therefore capable of great complexity. Has anyone noticed the part of my story that didn't make sense? The human scouts were on that planet to attack the colony. So why did they defend it when the Zorkans attacked? You might think they wanted the buildings intact, but it's much more complicated. War apparently isn't just chaos, where one side tries to kill as many of the other before their own group is destroyed. Humans may be savage, but they're far from mindless. There are rules which distinguish war from simply killing other humans. These rules are complex but mostly concern who can and can't be killed. Enemies who surrender are generally not allowed to be killed. Members of the enemy group who don't actually fight, civilians, are also supposed to be left alone. These rules vary, but one almost universal taboo is against killing juveniles. The human scouts might have remained hidden if the Zorkans hadn't provoked them by attacking a human family with young. If you ever decide to study alien cultures, go out into the galaxy and actually meet some humans, and want to know how not to get yourself killed like that Zorkan commander, it's simple. Never threaten a human child. There are other guidelines when dealing with humans, but obey this rule and you could probably visit Earth safely. I did in my student days. Just because a human can kill you easily doesn't mean they want to. What happened after the colony incident? The Zorkan sent a fleet to eliminate the threat, still not understanding what they faced, and were promptly defeated by a combined human fleet. After scouts from one faction helped another settlement, they found it easier to put aside their differences. The surveillance footage of horrifying alien monsters helped unite all human factions against the aliens. Although human ships were less technologically advanced, they had far more ships built for combat. The complex tactical maneuvers of human fleets, used to fighting space battles with each other, were no match for Zorkan's strategy, which was simply advance and shoot. Ground battles usually ended as massacres. Remember, the scout team that wiped out 4 times their number of Zorkans were lightly armed by human standards. Finally, the Zorkans asked why this was happening. After analyzing their enemy and finding them intelligent, they managed to establish dialogue with humans. It may surprise you that humans were perfectly ready to stop killing Zorkans and make peace. The answer is simple. They had never encountered aliens before and were fascinated. As much as they were angry about the attack on the colony, they were more interested in learning about the first other intelligent species they'd discovered. Humans are complex creatures. The conflict drew attention from other starfaring species in the galaxy, and cultural exchange began. Today there are humans all over the galaxy studying various species and cultures. What should we learn from this? Never get into conflict with humans. If you absolutely can't avoid it, get other humans to do the fighting for you. It's what they were made for after all.